So my name is Rachel Joseph, and like too many Americans, I am a survivor of gun violence. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you on National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Every June 2nd, we wear orange, because orange is the color hunters wear in the woods to signify respect for human lives. I am here today to ask you to join me in restoring this respect for human life. Gun violence permeates our society. It has invaded our cities and towns, our streets and homes, our schools and places of worship, and it needs to stop. I am here today to honor my grandmother, Jerry Joseph. She was elected vice chair of the DFL in the 1950s because at that time, the chair seat was reserved for a man. She was then elected to the DNC and served as a U.S. ambassador to the Netherlands. My grandma has made it her life's work to advance the values of the Democratic Party. I wish to continue that work. I'm here today because I must continue that work. In 2003, my grandmother Jerry's only daughter, my Aunt Shelley, was gunned down in a courthouse shooting at the Hennepin County Government Center. Her violent death could have been prevented by necessary gun laws, laws that still do not exist. I am here today as a gun violence survivor living with PTSD. I am hypervigilant in crowds. I have terrible nightmares. I drop my children off at school and cry in my car, convinced that's the last time I will see them alive. Sometimes I dream that Shelley is alive, that she survived the shooting. When I wake up, my brain has convinced me that it's true, and it can take days for the devastating reality to set in. Each survivor experiences their trauma very differently, and some never come back. I am here today because I volunteer at Lucy Laney Elementary in Minneapolis. A hand for Lucy Laney. A school that has endured numerous lockdowns and panicked children due to shots being fired, once during a kindergarten open house, and again this past December, when third graders were happily playing at recess and had to be rushed off the playground because people were trying to kill each other in Cleveland Park. I am here today because I am the mother of 2 small children. I don't want them to rehearse for their deaths during school shooter drills, nor do I want to join the ranks of mothers that will never get to see their children grow up, or the mothers who have raised loving adults that they're proud of, only to have them ripped away by gun violence. I am here today to say no more. No more to the NRA. No more to the National Shooting Sports Foundation. No more to the Minnesota gun lobby and their bullying, their fear-mongering, and their greed. No more to the thoughts and prayers offered by our politicians after the next mass casualty. No more to legislative half measures, politically safe talking points, and inaction as thousands continue to die. And especially, no more to Republicans controlling the Senate and the House in the great state of Minnesota. I am here today because the people in this room can champion life-saving change. We need to retake the House, the Senate, and retain the governorship. We have critical work to do. Gun violence has surpassed being a public health epidemic to being one of the largest moral failures in our society. We have founded Survivors Lead, the only gun reform organization led 100% by survivors. Part of our mission is to train survivors of gun violence and trauma survivors to run for public office. Survivors no longer intend to beg legislative committees for action. We intend to lead those committees. But until we can change the laws, the most essential work Survivors Lead provides is to our fellow survivors new in their trauma. We provide peer support and guidance as survivors navigate difficult processes, such as unsolved homicide assistance, criminal trials, bureaucracy, and grief. It is work that is not being done elsewhere. It is absolutely vital work that must be done by survivors for survivors. At Survivors Lead, we intend to engage in direct talk and in direct action. We will not hide the truth of what bullets do to bodies. We will not ignore the scarcity that exists in our communities that perpetuates gun violence. We will not shy away from tough conversations about public policy, and we will not be afraid to use two important words: gun control. The weight of this election cycle is enormous. Once this convention and the primaries end, we must unite to take back our state. And once united, Survivors Lead will ask you all to be bold. Be bold and walk hand in hand with gun violence survivors and unsolved cases. Help us bring justice for those families. Be bold and expand youth programming, meals, and wraparound services in public schools. Be bold in acknowledging that America is a country built upon white supremacy and privilege, and that these factors ravage our communities of color and intersect with gun violence. Be bold in addressing police violence and make reforms that protect both police and civilians. And lastly, be bold in bringing forth gun control legislation that will save lives. And when it's hard to be bold, because it's hard, remember Eric Nelson. Eric was a 14-year-old boy living in Princeton, Minnesota. He loved building with Legos and riding his bike. He was shot to death by another child because an adult left a gun unsecured and accessible to children. Remember Burdell Beeks. Burdell was a beloved mother and grandmother driving her 16-year-old granddaughter to a job interview when bullets pierced her minivan when she stopped at a stop sign in Minneapolis. Her last words to her teenage granddaughter, who watched her die, were, "Baby, they got me. They got me." Remember Chase Passeur. Chase was a 23-year-old law clerk. He was a wise old soul, best friend to everyone he met. He graduated early and was about to start his adult life, law school, and move in with his girlfriend Molly. He was shot 8 times and killed by a prohibited gun purchaser in the St. Paul law office where he worked. Remember Richard Ambers. Richard was a 31-year-old husband and father to 3 young children. He was silly. He loved to make people laugh. He would have done anything for his family and learned to braid his 3 daughters' hair. When his mom couldn't show him a style, he'd teach himself with YouTube videos, and the girls always looked adorable. He was shot to death in his car in Minneapolis on Labor Day weekend 2016. And finally, remember Noah Thomas. Noah Thomas, a joy-filled 2-year-old boy who lit up the world with his laughter. Noah was shot in the heart and killed on a Sunday morning just after returning from church with his mother. Noah spoke his last words at the kitchen stove, excitedly stirring scrambled eggs, making eggs with mama. I have worked with the family and friends of each of these individuals. Their preventable deaths and the lasting traumatic grief make me furious. It should make you furious. It is time to turn that fury into action. Please join Survivors Lead in our work at our event on June 14th and be bold to ensure the safety of all Minnesotans. Thank you.